bored. Are you bored? Yes. Let's go to Lola and ask a story. Let's go. Lola, Lola, can you tell us a story, please?
Story?
Yes.
Okay, come. Now sit down. I will tell you a story about the very great need.
Now, what is the very great news all about?
The very great need. The little community of brothers in Reims had organized itself around Jean-Baptiste de LaSalle to conduct, together and by association, gratuitous schools. The necessity of this institute is very great because artisans and the poor cannot give their children the needed instruction, not a suitable Christian education. In the year 1680, the reign of Louis XIV, the Sun King, was in full flower, ascended the throne of France for 30 years. It was an era when the social hierarchy was beginning to change, where birth alone was no longer the criterion of worth. The rivalry for positions was intense and engaged. Bishops, members of town councils, and members of parliament alike. As De La Salle himself came gradually to realize the contrast between nobility and the upper bourgeois. On the other hand, the artisans and the poor was striking. Families suffered through periods of unemployment and semi-starvation that were inevitable and
Lola,
persistent.
what is an educational policy?
Actually, darling,
Educational policy. In matters of educational policy, religious and secular aspects of life were governed by a delicate balance between the two powers. The royal policy fixed the minimum salary for the teachers and decreed that boys were to be taught by men and girls by women. The police had no jurisdiction over school matters. The local pastor might control the schools in his parish, but always be dependent upon the bishop. De La Salle involved with a new type of school. It required him the greatest tact and diplomacy to win over the officials, the city council, the parish priest, the bishops, and the royal supervisor.
Lola, who was the first person who dropped the board?
Movements for reform of the schools. In addressing the need for the reform of popular education in France, Jean-Baptiste de La Salle was not alone and is not a pioneer. The predecessor of this field is Father Pierre Ferrer, founder of the Congregation of Notre Dame at Nancy. He viewed that they could better procure the glory of God through a teaching ministry. Before Jean-Baptiste de La Salle came on the scene, Father Pierre Ferrer died in 1640, but his experiment remained as an example. Another movement to reform of book entitled El Escole Paroissiale of Jacques de Betancourt and Saint Nicolas de Chardonnet in Paris. With these essential books, they established regular contact between the parents and the school, in where absences and throw-ins were not tolerated. Another innovation was the Abbey of Port Royal. Metal pens for writing and schools at Port Royal were famous because of the penmanship of the students. Charles Demia, the city of Lyon, became identified with the movement to provide a decent education for the poor. Francois Duval and Marguerite Listock helped to found a small community known as the Teaching Women, Maestresses, for the Christian and charitable schools. That time, the congregation known as the Sisters of the Child Jesus of Rouen. Adrian Yale, who was the Procurator General of Hospice at Rouen, was organizing a group of volunteer laymen to assist in attending to the many needs of the sick, elderly, and the homeless poor. All throughout of the happenings, Jean-Baptiste de LaSalle became aware of the movements in Rouen to provide religious instruction for the children of the poor. From then on, he was being drawn, one step at a time, into the mainstream of a movement in which many others had been the pioneers.
On the 17th century, the children of the poor were relegated to the charity schools sponsored by the parish with approval of the local bishop. The only alternative to the parish charity school for poor children was the school, usually associated with the general hospice, the poorhouse in the larger cities. These centers house not only the sick and incurably ill, but the aged and homeless, the mildly insane migrant workers and vagabonds. Among them would be sick or abandoned children, street waifs, or even children placed there for a longer or shorter period by their working parents. However, there were these schools which are the alternative to the children of rich people, and at the same time, these schools are required to accept children to the certified poor. So obviously, there's a sense of shame on the part of the poor and lack of motivations on the part of the teachers. The title Christians not only the religious character and purpose of the school, but also serve to differentiate this new type of school from the charity schools on the one hand and the little schools on the other hand.
Lala, what's the outstanding characteristics of Christian schools?
Discipline and good order became one of the outstanding characteristics of the Christian schools. Detailed instructions was given in habits of cleanliness and the rules of politeness so that even the poorest people could associate with their peers without fear of offending them. Punishments were kept to a minimum, graded to meet the offense, and always administered with dignity, calm, and without any show of anger or resentment.
What a wonderful story, Lola! Thank you.